Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really going to plunge into something pretty special. It's a powerful story, a real journey deep into the human mind. We're breaking down Anita Desai's debut novel, Cry the Peacock. And our mission here really is to unpack how this landmark novel digs into psychological turmoil, marital alienation, the weight of society, all through the eyes of one, frankly, unforgettable character.
Right. And for this, we've gone through a really comprehensive book review, pulling out, the key insights, the most important bits, so you get a focused look at this important work without needing to sift through the whole review yourself.
Okay, let's jump right in then. The core story. So our protagonist is Maya. She's sensitive, upper-class Indian woman, grew up very indulged, doted on by her father.
Luxury.
Yeah. But then things change. She marries Gautama. He's this rational, kind of emotionally detached lawyer. And you feel it straight away, this huge emotional gap in their marriage, like right from the start.
And what really ramps up the tension, turns that gap into something terrifying, is this chilling prophecy from her childhood. An astrologer predicted it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that either Maya or Gautama would die in the 4th year of their marriage.
Wow.
And this isn't just like a passing thought from Maya. It becomes this absolutely crushing psychological burden. Her whole world starts revolving around death. And that's mixed with this deep spiritual emptiness, loneliness, and it's all just slowly pushing her towards, insanity.
And what's so tough to read or to think about is Gautama's reaction or lack of reaction. His stoic indifference just makes everything worse for her, doesn't it? It pushes her further away.
It absolutely does. And the whole thing builds towards this really tragic, almost inevitable ending. Maya, in what's described as a fit of madness, she kills Gautama. So she fulfills the prophecy, but descends completely into psychosis.
That initial setup, the prophecy, that immediate feeling of doom, it's just incredibly potent. How does Desai make it hit so hard right from the beginning?
Well, that plot, that tragedy, it's not just for shock value. It was actually quite groundbreaking for its time in Indian English literature. Before this book, writers didn't often dive this deep into a character's inner life.
Yeah.
Their psyche. Desai really pioneered what we call psychological realism. She meticulously maps out Maya's internal world, showing how her thoughts, her emotions, not just outside events, shape her fate. It was a pretty revolutionary way to explore character back then. And that immediate sense of inner dread, that's a huge part of its power.
Okay, so given Maya's journey, this harrowing path, you immediately wonder what exactly is going on inside her head. Which I guess leads us nicely into the first big theme, this raw look at psychological turmoil, at mental illness. Desai really gives us this profound exploration of a mind coming undone, right? But
Yeah.
with nuance and empathy.
Exactly. And her use of stream of consciousness, it's not just a technique. It's like she gives you a direct line into Maya's mind. You get her thoughts, her feelings as they happen, unfiltered, sometimes chaotic. Kind of like real thoughts, right? That's how she makes you feel like you're inside Maya's fragmented reality, not just watching from the outside.
And then there's the marriage itself, that intense discord, the emotional alienation. Maya and Gautama, they almost feel like symbols, don't they? Symbols of that disconnect when partners are just fundamentally mismatched, mentally, spiritually.
Absolutely. And their failure to communicate, it's more than just their problem. It starts to feel symbolic of, the bigger picture, how society in that context often suppressed women's emotional needs. It kind of speaks to something larger.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me. How does Desai manage to make us feel so deeply connected to Maya's internal world? It's one thing to describe it, but she makes you feel it.
I think it's by letting us live inside her head so completely through those inner thoughts we mentioned. She shows you firsthand the devastating results of that emotional starvation in the relationship. You feel the weight of what Maya wants, what she needs, and the agony of just not being heard. It's almost a physical empathy you feel as a reader. Makes her breakdown feel incredibly real.
So Maya's personal story is obviously central, but it feels like the novel uses it to talk about bigger things too, these larger societal philosophical tensions. Let's start with the feminist angle. Maya's situation, it really mirrors the plight of, many Indian women at the time feeling trapped in patriarchal systems.
Right, systems where men often held the power, limiting women's choices, their voices, and her longing for affection, for identity, for some kind of meaning. It's not just her personal struggle. It really questions those traditional roles forced on women in marriage. She's pushing back, even if implicitly.
And then there's that tension, that contrast, East versus West maybe, or spirituality versus rationalism. Maya seems to embody the intuitive, the emotional, the spiritual side of life.
Yeah, Definitely. Whereas Gautama represents, logic, detachment, maybe modern rationalism. So their personal conflict becomes this bigger symbol. The tension between traditional Indian values and maybe Western rational thought infiltrating society, the clash of worldviews right there in their marriage. But it's important, I think, to clarify, Gautama's detachment isn't necessarily presented as just being cruel. It's framed more as his philosophical stance, maybe tied to his spiritual beliefs about detachment from worldly things.
Oh, interesting distinction. And of course, looming over everything is death and fate.
Oh, absolutely. Death is everywhere in
Yeah.
the novel, as a physical thing, but also as this metaphysical idea. It just dominates. In that prophecy, it adds this heavy sense of fatalism. It makes Maya's obsession with mortality feel both like philosophical and pathological. It's this constant shadow.
So what does this all mean then? By weaving her personal struggles with these bigger cultural clashes, what are the deeper messages Desai is sending about culture, about identity, things that maybe still resonate today?
I think she's really inviting you, the listener, to think about these universal struggles, right? How do we find meaning? How do we connect with each other? What happens when these deeply held values collide, especially in a world that's always changing? It goes beyond just India in the 1960s. It speaks to the human condition, really.
Let's shift gears a bit and talk about how she tells the story. The narrative style, the symbolism. We mentioned the stream of consciousness. And it's interesting how the story isn't strictly linear, is it? It jumps between her memories, her present.
Right. And the language itself is just so potent. It's often described as poetic, full of imagery, metaphors. It creates this very distinct atmosphere, dreamlike, sometimes claustrophobic.
Mhm.
You really feel like you're inside Maya's deteriorating mental space. And that nonlinear structure you mentioned, jumping between past and present, that actually mirrors how her mind is fragmenting. It
Yeah.
pulls you deeper into that fractured reality.
And the peacock symbol, that's probably the most famous one. The peacock crying before the rain.
Yeah, it becomes this powerful metaphor for Maya herself. Beautiful, definitely, but also tragic. Destined to mourn, almost foreshadowing disaster. It's incredibly effective.
Hmm.
And beyond the peacock, Desai uses other things too. Colors, the weather, descriptions of nature all throughout the book. And they consistently mirror Maya's inner state, adding these really rich emotional layers. The outside world reflects her inner turmoil.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit more. How does Desai use these specific artistic choices, the stream of consciousness, the nonlinear stuff, the poetic language, the symbols? How does she use them to pull us so deeply into Maya's fractured reality? What's the trick?
Well, I don't know if it's a trick, but it's the combination, isn't it?
Hmm.
The stream of consciousness puts you right in her head, so you experience the fragmentation directly. The nonlinear structure reinforces that feeling of a mind breaking apart, jumping around in time, like her thoughts are. And then the imagery rich, sometimes almost suffocating like that peacock's cry.
Hmm.
It makes her inner struggle feel tangible, immediate. You're not just reading about a mental collapse, you're kind of experiencing it sensorially.
Right, right. Okay, finally, let's touch on how the book was received and its legacy. Cry and the Peacock got a lot of praise right away, didn't it? For its psychological depth, that lyrical style.
It did. And it was genuinely pioneering because Desai was really one of the first in Indian English fiction to focus so intensely on the inner emotional lives of women. That was territory that, frankly, had been largely ignored before her. She really carved out a new path.
Though there was some criticism, wasn't there, about maybe not enough external action, not enough plot happening outside Maya's head.
Yeah, that's a common point. But many critics push back on that. They argue it's entirely intentional. That's the whole point of a psychological novel like this. The focus is the inner conflict, not external events. Maya's mind is the main stage, so it's seen as a deliberate choice, reflecting the novel's purpose, not a flaw.
So wrapping this part up, what does this all mean for the book's place in literature? Why is it still seen as so important, so impactful today?
I think Cry the Peacock holds its place as a landmark because it's doing so many things at once. It's a foundational feminist text for the genre. It's a deep psychological study. It's a gripping tragedy, all rolled into one. That layered complexity is why it keeps resonating, why new readers keep finding things in it.
And there you have it. Our deep dive into Cry the Peacock really shows this vivid, poignant picture of a woman's crisis, mental, emotional. It's a story that definitely sticks with you.
Yeah, it's maybe not a light, casual read, but if you approach it thoughtfully, that introspective tone, that poetic style, it really rewards you. There's incredible depth and poignancy there for the empathetic reader.
So as you think about Maya, about the world Desai created, maybe something to ponder is, What responsibility do we have? Individually, maybe as a society, responsibility to really see and maybe nurture the emotional, the spiritual needs in people around us, especially when those needs seem so different from our own, maybe more rational perspectives.